I have one arc and 2 early copies that have been sent to me by the publishers, and I haven't read any of them. I am enthralled. I am having a whale of a time. I have a not so little unboxing. Everything is getting progressively worse. The seasonal depression has been heightened by this book instead of reduced. And honestly, I'm explaining it badly because I don't understand what's happened. Hello my guys, welcome to a vlog. It's been a wee while since we've done a vlog that isn't Shelve It or Scrap It, and I have been having a great time with Shelve It or Scrap It. I don't want to hear you guys saying otherwise. I'm having a whale of a time, but it is time to take a little bit of a break because my TBR is growing. And she's growing by the day, and I am ignoring her to make episodes of Shelve It or Scrap It. So today we're going to do a little bit of a catch up because I have 3 books here. I have one arc and 2 early copies that have been sent to me by the publishers. They were all released on November 6th, and I haven't read any of them. So today I'm going to be clearing a little bit of my priority TBR and also clearing my conscience as I am aiming to read through these. I don't know whether I'm going to get to all of them, if I'm being honest, because we're going to try and do this in a week. And sometimes I read really quickly and sometimes I take an eternity, and I just don't know which one we're going to fall into until it comes into it. You know, I go in with the best intentions and then I'm just suddenly hit with a slump in the middle of the week and I don't want to read. But my intention is to read through all 3 of these. If not, I'll do at least 2. I'll do it for you guys. But the nights are getting darker in the UK, and so while this TBR, or my TBR in general, is a little bit ambitious, I'm not too concerned about it. One, because I'm in denial, I'm a bit delulu, but also because I'm definitely in my hibernation era. The temperature has dropped significantly as well recently, so I do not want to leave my house under any circumstances, which leaves lots of time for reading. That being said, I have recently discovered that I can play 2 Point Hospital via cloud gaming without having to have a gaming PC to be able to run anything on my tired old Mac, and I am really into my cross stitch right now. So the good thing is actually that all of these books have now been released, so there's potential that I'll be able to find an audiobook for at least one of them so that I can pursue my hobbies while I'm getting some reading done, because that's all I want to do. I just want to like cozy up inside, do something I love, and consume media to distract me from this cold, harsh world, and then hopefully the seasonal depression will pass and I'll be a new person again when I re-emerge from my cave in March. But aside from hobbies, I do want to be a little bit productive in this time, and so I have decided that I'm going to spend the winter months trying to learn a new language with the sponsor of today's video, Rosetta Stone. As some of you guys know, I am hosting a Trover trip to South Korea early next year, which there are only 7 spots available if you want to snag one for yourself. But given that I travel quite a bit now, I have noticed that I am a lot more comfortable when I'm in a country where I know at least the basics of a language, you know, just like enough to get me by so I'm not completely clueless. However, I have not even really attempted to learn a language since I was in school. I tried to learn Italian using a guidebook once, and honestly, aside from memorizing a list of words, which at this point I've now forgotten, I didn't really get anywhere with that. So I wouldn't even know where to start with learning a new language, which is where Rosetta Stone comes in. Rosetta Stone is an all-in-one learning platform established over 30 years ago to help learners gain fluency in 25 languages. The amazing thing about Rosetta Stone that I found really helpful is that they use something called dynamic immersion, which essentially mimics the way that you learn to speak when you're a child. So you'll essentially hear sound bites in the language that you're trying to learn, in my case Korean, and you'll have to use context clues to match the speech to a picture. So for example, there will be a man, a woman, a boy, a girl, and you'll be told what woman means, and then it will change slightly, and given the context clues of what you've just heard and what you know, you can maybe guess that the phrase that you've just heard means man as opposed to woman, and then it'll change to women as opposed to woman, meaning that you are starting to think in the language that you're trying to learn as opposed to just like repeating, parroting back and trying to like memorize. You also get to practice your speech with Rosetta Stone using their true accent speech recognition technology, which lets you know how accurate your pronunciation is. And the cool thing about this as well is that as you get more confident in your new language, you can adjust the sensitivity on the pronunciation to help you really get it spot on. And something that I really love is that the lessons are broken down into digestible units of around 10 minutes each, making them easy to slot into your day so that you can still make progress even if you don't have these very large chunks of time to dedicate to learning a new language. So if learning a new language is one of your 25 2026 goals, then why wait for the new year to start? If you click on the exclusive link in my description box or scan the QR code on screen, you can take advantage of Rosetta Stone's special $99 single language holiday promotion, or you can get yourself over 60% off a lifetime unlimited subscription, giving you access to all 25 Rosetta Stone languages. And if you're looking to give the gift of multilingualism this holiday season, Rosetta Stone do allow you to schedule digital delivery to your loved one's inbox on Christmas Day, offering a hassle-free gift option. Thank you so much to Rosetta Stone for sponsoring this video. So in terms of what we're going to be reading, I'm not really sure what I want to pick up first, but I will run through our 3 options. So the first one I have is an ARC, the other 2 are finished copies, and the ARC is Cry Voidbringer by Elaine Ho, which was sent to me by Solaris. So thank you so much to Solaris for that. This one I believe is a sci-fi. It has an imperialist government system that is oppressing our main character, who is trying to fight back against it, and I think that she's really struggling, and she finds a child who has this really like unique and magnificent power that may be the thing that turns the tide against their imperialist masters for good. One that I am on the blog tour for, so actually I may end up picking this one up first because I don't have long until that blog tour is due. But that is Blackthornne by G.T. Geisinger. Honestly, the only thing I know about this is that it is a gothic romance. That's all I read on the press release and I was sold. I signed up for the blog tour. I have heard since that G.T. Geisinger books are really spicy. I think she's like typically a contemporary romance author. So I don't necessarily associate spice with gothic because I associate gothic with like slow burn and yearning and pining. So we'll see how this goes. I'm cautiously optimistic. I just don't know whether this is going to be a little bit more intense than I thought it was going to be. And this one is a Tor Bramble release. It was sent to me by Bookbreak, so thank you very much, Bookbreak. And then the last one that I have was sent to me by Penguin Michael Joseph, and that is Ship of Spells by H. Leighton Dixon. This one is a sentient ship that is captained by an elf that has, I think the synopsis says, chimeric magic. I am not getting a really good picture of this from the synopsis. I'm terrible at being able to process a synopsis of a fantasy story unless I'm already familiar with the world. Like, it honestly just doesn't compute. I'm a little bit nervous about this one because seafaring stuff doesn't always work for me. There are a couple of instances where it really has, but it depends on the angle. I don't mind a pirate story. I also like seafaring merchants, but I think it's I've read sentient ships before and I have enjoyed them, Live Ship Traders, and I'm looking at you, but aside from that, I don't know how I feel about ship sentiency. So I guess we'll find out together. So I'm going to be starting out with Blackthornne by G.T. Geisinger. This one was sent to me by Bookbreak, and I'm also on the blog tour for this on Friday. It's now Wednesday. It's Wednesday evening, actually at 6:20, and I have not started this book, so I need to get a move on because I've actually challenged myself for the blog tour to make my first short form vlog. I've been wanting to do it because in terms of like Bookish reels and Bookish TikToks, the things that I like to consume are more vlog related. Actually, I just love vlogs on all platforms, but I have struggled to find an excuse to make my own short form vlog when obviously I prefer to vlog long form here, and I'd rather be making YouTube content than taking books out of that content to make short form. So I felt like a blog tour was the perfect excuse for me to be able to explore that, and we'll see how it goes because you guys know more than anyone that I can't really be all that concise. But when I signed up for the blog tour of this, all I really retained and read from the synopsis is that this is a gothic romance. I have since discovered that this is, I think, pretty spicy, which, you know, depending on how it's executed, isn't always my favorite, but I do really like the premise of this one. We're following these two families. I'm pretty sure it's set in a small town because these things usually are, and our main character is from the Blackthornne family, so these are prestigious, I'm assuming somewhat fantastical. I'm assuming there is a fantasy element in here. The main character left town a few years ago when her mother died under suspicious circumstances, and the other prestigious family in town, which are the Crofts, were the ones who were blamed for the death of her mother, or the one that she blamed anyway. And she's returned back to this town and she finds out, I can't remember if her grandmother's died and that's why she's returning, but she finds out that her grandmother's body is missing from the cemetery where all of her family are buried. And so she starts to investigate what's happening there, but she also once again thinks the Crofts are responsible. So I'm assuming the death of her mother and whatever's happened to her grandmother are connected. The problem is, however, that our main character's first love is, of course, the eldest son of the Croft family. And this, of course, is going going to complicate matters. So that's where our gothic romance element comes in. I didn't necessarily know that this was going to be spicy. I literally just read through the synopsis, saw gothic romance, was like, yeah, that's cool, sign me up. I then received the book and I opened it and I saw the content warnings. I'll just read them out for you because in case you're thinking of picking this book up, it's good to be aware of these things. Blackthornne is a page-turning gothic romance that contains dark themes and scenes that may not be suitable for everyone, including graphic sex, non-con and dub-con sex, explicit language, possible harm to a child, human sacrifice, disturbing imagery, the occult, religion, violence, murder, horror, incest, blood, death, grief, and gore. So it's going to get pretty intense and pretty dark in here. Obviously, some of those things may just be briefly mentioned, so I don't know to what extent they're explored within this book, but I'm pretty sure I had a comment on, maybe it was my November TBR, saying that JT Geisinger books can be quite intense. This is my first foray into this author's work, so hopefully I like it, because I'm not against any of those things. I'm just typically, when it comes to romance, I prefer a little bit of a slow burn, and when things tend to be really spicy, it doesn't tend to be a slow burn. But we'll see. So I've just passed the page 100 mark in Blackthornne, and I'm enjoying this, not necessarily more than I expected to, but I actually had no expectations going into this, having never read anything from the author before and solely picking it up based on the fact that it was a gothic romance with an interesting sounding synopsis. I'm really enjoying the writing style in here. I will say that it's not as atmospheric as I typically associate with gothic fiction. It does have a dreary atmosphere, but normally it's like really heavy on the description, and I feel like this book is a lot more readable than that, but I feel like aesthetically it's very gothic, and that is still very much providing the vibes that I require to enjoy this one. It's given like a little bit of the Addams Family, especially in the way that this was set up, where our main character comes home with her child in tow. Did not know that there was a child involved in this. Honestly, it's refreshing to see. And our main character, I think, is either in her very late 20s or she's in her early 30s. She's somewhere in that age bracket, which is also great. But the way that she arrives at this manor and the way that it's described, and they have this ancient butler type figure who hasn't aged pretty much since the day that she first remembers seeing him, like when she was a child, and he's like still with this family, and she has these two ethereal beautiful aunts. The Blackthorns in here as well are reading like very kind of traditional style witches. I want to say that the aunts are like heavily given practical magic, which is always a vibe, but then the Crofts are like heavy on the goth vibes. Like they have generational wealth. The male main character in here, Ronan Croft, has a widow's peak and he dresses like head to toe in black, but he has like these piercing blue eyes, and I think that the magic that's most associated with their family is actually more of a curse that has been afflicting them for generations that they're trying to figure out a cure for. I'm also really enjoying the banter between the main character and the love interest in here. So they essentially, like 12 years ago, Maven, who's our female main character, left the town. It's called Solstice and it's in New England, I believe. It was shortly after the suspicious death of her mother, and these two families have always been rivals. So the Crofts were blamed for this death, but it hasn't actually gone too much into detail about the death of her mother at this point yet. But she left, and up until that point, she had been hooking up with Ronan, and they, from both sides, were getting that they were very much in love with each other, but they had this like family rivalry that had gone back generations that they felt was insurmountable. Their relationship was very passionate, but it wasn't ever actually a relationship, so they didn't really communicate very well throughout it, and I'm guessing that they were like between the ages of like 17 and 19 when this unfolded. So now that Maven's back, she's pretending that she hates Ronan. She's been trying to put him behind her for the last 12 years, and he has very much just been sat around waiting for her to return. So we have this kind of dynamic established where he is essentially pushing her to hang out with him. He's like, you know you want to, like, you know you like me, you know that you're attracted to me, come on, like I can see it, we all know it. And she's very much like, I hate you, I haven't thought about you, don't even look at me, why are you outside of my house? Meanwhile, they share a child, because this child, I mean, she's of a very convenient age considering that Maven left town 12 years ago. So the whole kid dynamic I think is great. Like I said, it's refreshing to see. You don't see that a lot in fantasy, especially like female single parent characters is not super common. You tend to follow women in like the early to mid-20s tends to be the very typical protagonist for fantasy. And this is actually the second book in a row I've read with a character that's more like early 30s age range, which I'm loving. And then I honestly couldn't tell you the last time I read like a contemporary fantasy where the main character had a child. They're like at the beginning as well, or early in the series, and not like, oh, they lived happily ever after and had a baby. You know what I mean? So I'm enjoying that dynamic and the way that the relationship and the banter between them is building in this both like sexually charged way, but also just the constant teasing and the almost like playful argumentative nature of their relationship. So this is looking like it's going to be a win for me, I can't lie. I have 100 pages left to go in this one and I am enthralled. I am having a whale of a time. This is so compulsively readable. I cannot put it down. Even though this book has taken a turn halfway through, we had a plot twist at the end of part 1 that I 100% was not expecting. I definitely feel a certain way about it, especially because up to like where I'm at right now, we haven't kind of disproved the plot twist, and I'm like, are we going to? I will say it is something that took me by surprise. It is a thought that I had as I was reading like the first half of this book, but I was like, the author isn't going to go there. Like there's no way that she's going to go there in the year of 2025, and my god, did she go there. I'm honestly still reeling. I gasped when I read the reveal in particular. It's provided an interesting dynamic, I'll say that. But even though this is going in a very different direction than I anticipated from the beginning, I am still hooked. Like I'm still desperate to know what is coming in this book because of how compulsively readable it is. I really like the characters. Dare I say, I've already said it, but dare I say again at this point in the book, I do enjoy the sexual tension between them, which is why I'm hoping that the book is going to resolve in a certain way that it isn't heading towards right now. And I think one of the reasons why I'm enjoying this so much is because I love the he falls first trope, which we've talked about in books like The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. More recently, like the L.J. Andrews books that I've read tend to have the he falls first trope. It's essentially just where it's so obvious that the male main character is head over heels for the female main character before she's realized it herself. It's a very popular like Ali Hazelwood trope as well. This one is a little bit different in that I wouldn't necessarily call it the he falls first trope because they have both fallen pretty much at the same time. Like it is no secret that you can tell from his perspective and the way that he's pursuing her and the way that he's waited around for her for 12 years that he has always been in love with her, even though that's not a conversation they ever had like when they were teenagers before she left. And because we read so consistently from her perspective, we know that she was in love with him, and part of the reason why she left is because she felt like he didn't care about her and it was just like a casual thing and she wanted more, especially like when she found out that she was pregnant and stuff like that. But I do still feel like it very much plays into the dynamics of that trope because she is pretending to hate him. So if you've watched Vanderpump Rules, hi, like we know I'm a big Vanderpump Rules fan. If you want the tea of where I'm up to, I'm currently watching the season 7 reunion. So I have just one part of that left before I get into season 8. And you know Stassi, I've gone on record before saying that I hate Stassi and she's like the least favourite cast member for me. I actually don't mind Stassi now, but you know how like sometimes she goes on her really weird tirades about how she would kill people? That's kind of what the main character of this book is like. And that is how she talks to the love interest. And I do really like this banter that they have between them where he is essentially pursuing her relentlessly and she's telling him how much she hates him and he's like, no, but you don't know. And I know that you don't. So we have the he falls first dynamic in that it's quite obvious with the intensity of which he's pursuing her that he is actually really into her and dare I say he loves her, whereas she is pretending that she hasn't fallen for him, although we do know from her perspective that she has loved him in the past and that this is something that she's always kind of struggled with and struggled to get over. So it is very much kind of like they both fell at the same time, but the way that they're behaving, it's almost like he's fallen first, you know what I mean? I do actually like the story as well, weirdly, because I mean obviously we're going to find out why her grandmother's body has been stolen. We are going to get to that point eventually, but I do feel like the plot is overshadowed by their relationship and the history that the main character has had in this town and how weird the town. I don't want to say the town actually, it's more like the houses. The places where they live are like quite eerie and seem to have sort of like a life of their own. All of those things are overshadowing the mystery of like what happened to her grandmother's body, but I do think that the way that it's being executed, even though the discovery of the grandmother's body and what's happened there is not necessarily always our main character's driving force, other stuff that she's doing is kind of putting together the pieces of what's happened in this situation. So I feel like the plot is still fast-paced and gripping and it's constantly moving, even though the focus isn't necessarily always on like, oh my god, what's happened to my grandmother, we need to get to the bottom of this. Having a great time. It's definitely not a perfect book, and I feel like it's not necessarily got plot holes, but like it's not 100% realistic in that the aunts don't seem to care very much what has happened to the grandmother's body. They've forgotten about that now. They've moved on. They're just being like weird and ethereal in their house. So there's things like that where it's like, okay, I feel like if this was a more realistic situation, more people would be concerned about the missing body of this old lady. But generally, like, I'm having an amazing time with this and I can't wait to keep reading. So I have a not so little unboxing from Luna Bookish Flames Candles for you guys. I am a rep for Luna Bookish Flames Candles, which means that every month the lovely Manos sends me a nice big box of candles in exchange for this here unboxing. And if you would like to get any of these candles, which of course I would recommend, you can use my code, which is Becca15, to get yourself a discount on your entire order. I believe we have some Twilight candles in here, maybe some other fandoms, and I think maybe one of the last Sarah J Maas candles. If you all don't know, there has been this big thing with licensing SJM products and how her team aren't renewing the licenses that allow small businesses to make merch for her books, and instead she's signing over the rights to like this big company that's going to essentially just mass produce stuff. So if you would like to get your hands on any of the SJM candles from Luna Bookish Flames Candles, I'm not sure how much is still going to be in stock at this point, but the final day to get your hands on those is November 30th before the license does indeed run out. So let's see what we have here. It's going to be a hefty one if I know manners at all. Oop, it's the Los Angeles Institute. So this is a Shadow Hunters candle. Ooh, the scent is, it's banana, cream, milk, honey, and vanilla. That one's real nice. Not what I expected, but I like it. The New York Institute, which is my favorite of the Shadow Hunter Institutes. This one is fizz cocktails, powdery florals, hibiscus, and wild fruits. That one's nice. It's like very slightly fruity, but a tad perfumey as well. Next up, we have the London Institute. I like how all of these labels fit like together. I think they look quite cute. This one is grapefruit, blackberry, jasmine, lily, laurel, cedar, amber, and vetiver. Ooh, that one is definitely like a strong floral. Next up, we have one of the large tins. This one is an SJM one. It is the Sorial, and the scent on this one is black tea, of course, raspberry, strawberry jam, apple juice, creamy vanilla, and fluffy warm scones. Ooh, that one is very strongly fruity. It smells like a particular food, and I can't think of what it is right now. Next up, we have Charlie Swan, everyone's favorite daddy. The scent is citrus, bergamot, aged rum, hay, cinnamon, ginger, juniper, cardamom, sandalwood, tobacco, birchwood, leather, and oak moss. Ooh, that is like a very strong masculine scent. The Charlie girls will be happy with that one. Next up, we have one of the wax melts, which is exciting. I've been using these in the living room. This one is Parabatai, and I think I'm gonna like it because it starts with almond and cinnamon. We then have red fruits, sugar, plum, citrus, orange, and lemon. Oh, the almond is strong in this one. It smells like a black tea that I've got that has almond in, actually. I think I've run out of that tea, and actually I really want more. Next up, we have the Cullens with like a little baseball thing on the sticker. The scent on these is pumpkin, buttercream frosting, caramel, and cake. Oh, that is like a strong, it's like a pumpkin, it's a pumpkin candle. Like you smell that and you know it's a pumpkin candle. This one is All the Stories Are True. It is a Shadow Hunters candle, and the scent is cinnamon and woods, keeping it nice and simple. Oh, I love the glitter on this one. That one's very masculine. This one is Angel Power, so Shadow Hunters once again. It is strawberry, patchouli, cedar, vetiver, agarwood, moss, and amber. That is like, kind of like perfumey floral, I want to say. Like it smells like potpourri, that kind of scent. This one is Twilight. It is a new moon candle. It's vetiver, herbs, sandalwood, amber, and cedarwood. That one's like really fresh. I like that one a lot. Next up, we have Team Edward. I was Team Edward back in the day, but the older I got, the more I appreciated Jacob. This one is bergamot, sugar, cardamom, divana, popcorn, oud, frankincense, sandalwood, caramel, and laudanum. Oh, that one's nice. You can smell the rose in that, but it's like a real sweet rose. Next up, we have Twilight. This has to be apple, right? Apple, woods, and musk. Perfect. And it's beautiful. I love an apple candle. It is like a perfumey apple, but I'm a sucker for apple, like a crisp apple, a caramel apple. Give me them all. Next up, we have Carlisle Cullen, another very important Twilight daddy. This one is, raspberry, lychee, saffron, rose, berries, frankincense, violet, agarwood, leather, amber, patchouli, and sandalwood. This is like, once again, masculine, but not as heavily masculine as the two that we've had in this haul so far. This one is like a little bit lighter and fresher. And then we have two more in here. First up, we have Team Jacob. This one is, toasted nuts, caramel, coconut, vanilla, and wood. I think I'm going to enjoy this one more than the Edward one. Yes, it is. It's very nutty, but it's not like a heavy sweet one. It's more of like a lighter nutty scent. And then our final one is Eclipse. And the scent on this is mint whiskey, violet leather, tuberose, incense, patchouli, vetiver, tobacco, vanilla, and musk. Oh, that one's like almost minty. Is there? Yeah, there is mint in it. It's like I can feel, you know, when you smell something minty and you can feel it as opposed to smell it. Oh, I really like that one. Like it's kind of wintry, but also not like a super pine scent or anything. That is really interesting, but I like that one a lot. So from this month's haul, I think my favorites are this one because I think it's such an obscure scent. Like I don't think I've ever smelled anything quite like it. I also really like the New York Institute, which I'm happy about because of all of the institutes. This one is my favorite. And then the Twilight candle, because that one is the apple scent and I am a sucker for apple. So once again, thank you so much to Manos from Lunar Bookish Flames Candles for sending me this lovely box. And don't forget, if you would like to pick up something from Lunar Bookish Flames Candles for yourself, you can use my discount code, which is Becca15, to get money off your entire order. I finished Blackthornne. And oh my, was that a wild ride. The last 50 to 70 pages of this book were intense. And, you know, heed those content warnings. I will say that because for the first 200 pages of this book, I was like, okay, I feel like these content warnings were used a little overcautiously. Like, yes, all of these things are mentioned, but we're not really getting into it, you know? But no, we do get into it. The further you get into this book, the wilder it gets. It's like a fever dream for a lot of it. And you know, when we get to the end of the book and you kind of somewhat discover the reasons why certain things are happening, it makes sense why it's so kind of chaotic and escalates so quickly. We could have done with another like 50 pages on this just to wrap things up a little bit better, because the conclusion does kind of explain why it gets so chaotic, but because of my personal taste, because I like everything to be wrapped up in a little bow and to have some sort of like plausible, logical explanation, I would have appreciated an extra 50 pages to dive into some of those little tangents and wrap them up properly, or maybe just give a little bit of explanation to some things. But this is like a gothic romance. It also has like a thriller or a horror element to it, I would say, in terms of the plot, and for that reason it was incredibly pacey. I did end up giving it this 4 stars after all. There were some things that happened in this book where I could not believe my eyes. I was shook to my core, but I did read the content warning, so I did kind of know what I was getting myself into. The thing that I really enjoyed about this is, as I mentioned, the banter. Loved the banter. Really liked the writing style in here. But the thing that I loved about this is that I just didn't want to put it down. It was so compulsively readable. I was like riveted the entire way through. And you know, even as it got crazier and crazier and harder to believe, I still could not put this down because I just wanted to know what was actually going on here. And because of the nature of this book, as I said, we don't wrap everything up and there's a lot of loose ends, and that is definitely a negative in my opinion, just because of the kind of reader that I am, but just because of how invested in this book I was, how much I just wanted to find out what was happening next. This does deserve a pretty high rating, but like I said, I would recommend this, but do take those content warnings seriously because there's some pretty dark stuff in here and it does get pretty graphic. So I would definitely read more from JT Geisinger. I've never encountered any of her work before, so I did a little research, and by research I mean I put her name into Goodreads to see what other books she's published, assuming that maybe we had more along the same lines as this, but it seems like she's very concrete concretely a contemporary romance author. And this, I mean, I could deep dive a little further because I didn't go through all of her books, but generally there's a lot of like mafia romance and contemporary romance and that kind of thing, and nothing that seems kind of in this vein. So if you know of anything that GT Geisinger has written that's similar to this, then do let me know. But aside from that, I would definitely keep my eye out for upcoming releases from this author in this vein, just because of the type of contemporary romances that she writes. I don't really think that that's for me, and I don't think I'll be hurrying to pick those books up. But because I enjoyed this so much, if there was another like gothic or slightly paranormal or supernatural book from this author, then I do think it's highly likely that I would be interested in picking that up. So thank you very much to Book Break for sending this my way. I did indeed manage to make a 3-minute reading vlog. It was tough, but I did it, and I think I did an okay job. So if you want to go ahead and follow me on Instagram, I'm going to cross post it to TikTok as well at some point. So whichever of those platforms is your preference, then you can go ahead and do that and check it out. Let me know what you think as well, because you're getting my full thoughts here, but I want to know how people feel about the little bite-sized reading vlogs, because in 3 minutes, like, I can't give a lot of information, but vlogs are my preferred content to consume in short form and long form. I'm a easy gal to please, I'll be honest. So now that I've finished Blackthornne, it is time for me to move on to my next November 6th release, which should be, no, I've moved it. Is it here? Oh, it's over here. I've got it, guys, don't worry. The next one I'm going to be picking up is, I think, the biggest of the three, which is Cry Voidbringer by Elaine Ho. The reason why I'm tackling this one next is because it was the first one that was actually sent to me, and it's the only one of the three that's actually a review copy. The rest are finished copies. So, I mean, I do also want to get to Ship of Spells in this vlog, but this is the one that I definitely want to make sure that I read because it was sent to me in advance from the publisher. I'm actually really excited about this as well because it's a sci-fi. The other two books we're going to be reading in this vlog are romantasy, and I'm expecting this to have, from the synopsis anyway, I don't think it has any romantic content. And I do love me a sci-fi. I do not read enough sci-fi, but when I do, I tend to really enjoy it. And there are different types of sci-fi, and I enjoy some more than others, but I'm excited to just read something a little bit different because I feel like science fiction is severely neglected on my shelves. This one is a sci-fi with imperialist influence, and we are following a character who is fighting back against these imperialist masters who take children from their countries and their cultures and raise them as soldiers in the army that they're putting together. So she, I believe, was one of these children, and so now that she's older, she wants to take revenge on the people that took her from her home. And in her quest to do so, she stumbles across this child who has a very unique and powerful ability that could be the thing that turns the tide and can rid this, I want to say, solar system, universe of these imperialist oppressors for good. So very different themes to the other two books. So I think it's good we're putting it in the middle to spice things up. This one was sent to me by Solaris. So thank you so much to Solaris for that. They have a great track record with sending me books that I really enjoy. And I really hope that this is not an exception. And how long is this one? Because it feels pretty sturdy in my hands. It's not too long, it's just over 400 pages. So I'm going to dive into it right now, actually, because I'm procrastinating on editing, and I'll let you know when I get like a quarter of the way through this one what my initial thoughts are. You know how I always say to you guys that without any context or already being familiar with the world, that I can't memorize or like really understand a synopsis on a fantasy book? Well, I am about to prove that to a T, because this book is absolutely nothing like the way that I described it to you in the last clip. It's not even a sci-fi, it's a fantasy, as far as I'm aware. And now looking at the synopsis, it doesn't say anywhere that it is a sci-fi, because obviously I have the press release from the publisher. I think it's the eclipse on the front cover which made me believe that it was a sci-fi. It says it's a dark fantasy as well. It says it's for fans of the Jasmine Throne and the Final Strife, both of which are fantasy series. I will say though that it's reminded me of the C.L. Clarke series more than anything at this point, because I am, what's that book called? I feel like I gotta come through with the title. I can't just say C.L. Clarke, I have to give you more. I've read it as well. The Unbroken, because I am 116 pages into this now, and even though I quite apparently had no idea what this was about when I actually started it, I'm enjoying it quite a bit up to this point. So this is set in a kingdom that is broken, and the queen of the kingdom, I'm pretty sure, has recently come into power. She's quite young. She's actually, I don't want to say she's not very strong, okay, because when people are trying to kill you constantly and take your country from you, there's only like a certain amount of people who are going to be kind of like strong enough and skilled enough to resist that and behave appropriately under those circumstances. But she's quite clearly untested in her role, and her father was quite brutal. So there is a ongoing war between two kingdoms. They are called Ashvi and Tivu, I think. And Tivu is the much bigger force, and they've kind of beat Ashvi into submission. And we are currently in the kingdom of Ashvi, and the king's solution to this oppressive force, like constantly trying to push them back, was to take a blood tithe from all of the smaller countries that hadn't been conquered by this opposing empire. So all of these children from different cultures were taken from their home. They were essentially enslaved into this army. They were trained, their identities were stripped from them, and they became the faceless. So essentially they fight in masks to heighten their fear factor, but also because like without an identity, without any sort of like semblance of real life, without names, they are a more useful armed force, if that makes sense. They're very much given the Unsullied in Game of Thrones. Like that's the kind of vibe that we have going on here. And the names that they actually go by, the way that they're identified, is by the weapon that they use. So our main character that we're following is Hammer, and she is 100% giving Gideon from Gideon the Ninth, or Kissen from Godkiller. Like that is definitely what she is serving, and she doesn't really care about anyone. She thinks that attachment is weakness. However, when they are on a raid, they are raiding supplies from the enemy empire, they stumble across this wagon that has this child in it, and the child is signed over to Hammer's care, and this is like such a burden to her. However, she does become attached to this child, and this becomes problematic when the child displays powers that can tip the balance in this war. So the child has a god power, which is pretty common in this world. However, the god powers have been waning for a very long time. So they used to be incredibly useful, and now like some of the recent children with god powers have been able to make butterflies multiply, which is doing nobody any good during a war. So when the god children come into their powers and it turns out that they're useless, they tend to be killed. Hammer has already kind of decided that it's very, very likely that this kid called, I think she's called Viridian, is going to have an absolutely useless power. So Hammer's already like trying to think of how she can save this child when she's inevitably sent out into the waste to die. However, it turns out that Viridian's power is a little bit too useful because she can literally just kill vast amounts of people in a couple of seconds. And so that's kind of the point of the book where I'm at, where we're discovering Viridian's powers. And so I feel like it's going to be more of how can Hammer save Viridian from this country that is now going to use her as a weapon against their enemies. And I really thought that this book was going to be about this smaller kingdom or this smaller force taking down this empire, but actually the vibe that we're going with here is that both of these things are not good. Like both of these forces are oppressive, and something has to change for our characters to have any sense of like happiness or freedom in this world, because the faceless as well are marked, they're tattooed, so they can't even run away or escape because they're just sent straight back to where they came from. But the extra complication we have in this, I guess, is that we are also getting the perspective of the queen's advisor, who is one of the faceless, and she's also the queen's lover. So essentially, like when this queen came into power, she brought her lover, who happened to be one of the faceless, and promoted her to advisor, and this is causing a lot of problems because the rest of the queen's advisors don't think that there should be a faceless amongst them. And we actually read from the perspective of this advisor, who believes that because of her closeness to the queen, she can eventually achieve equality for the faceless, or at least achieve some sort of freedom for them after so many years of service. And she's hoping that her relationship with the queen is going to evolve into some sort of like citizenship for her, where she gets equal status to the rest of the people in this kingdom. But if you're asking me, like, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that the queen is going to continue to use her, and think that there's going to be no consequences to that because the faceless have a lesser status in society. So I'm really interested to see how this plays out when the queen doesn't have a backbone right now. She is a blubbering mess most of the time, but she's standing for this really oppressive rule that she's saying that she's going to change. But from what I've seen so far, she's making absolutely no moves to do anything about it. And we also are reading firsthand from the perspective of people who are oppressed by the rules of this country that the queen is ruling, but also we're reading from the perspective of somebody who's especially close to her and is giving her the benefit of the doubt constantly. So I'm having a good time with it so far. I'm definitely enjoying it. I think I was going to say it's more complex than I expected it to be. I don't think it is. The way in which it's complex, I didn't necessarily expect, because I thought it was going to be a sci-fi and it's actually a fantasy. But the good thing about it is that it does have that level of complexity. So I feel like it's making my brain happy because I have something to kind of like sink my teeth into with this one. So hopefully, because sometimes like I get really excited when I'm learning about a fantastical world, but as I get into it, I find out that maybe the story isn't for me, but so far so good, and let's hope that it continues to stay that way. Sorry about the fan if you can hear that. It is a fan, but it also heats, which is what it's doing right now because it's so cold. It's so cold. I went out today just for a couple of hours. I went for dinner with G from Book Roast this evening. She's come down to York and like stayed for a couple of nights, so we went out for dinner with Curtis and Logan as well. Had an amazing time, but damn has it gotten cold. It was like 3 degrees in York, and because I live a little further out into the countryside, like when we were driving home, it dropped to 0. And I didn't even get home late. It's not like this was midnight temperatures. This was like 9:30, and I feel like since I've gotten home, I have not been warm. So I'm about to, it's a lot later now, I'm about to get ready to go to bed, and I'm very, very excited to get under the covers and hopefully finally get warm. But I wanted to bring you a little bit of an update for Cry Voidbringer because I'm in the end stretch now. I think I have about 100 pages left. I'm on page 325, and if I recall, this is around 420 to 430 pages. And you know, it's interesting because I was really enjoying the first 100 to 150 pages, and I was essentially coming here to tell you that this story has not slowed down quite a bit. The pacing has slowed. Like I wrote a little bit of a stalemate where we're not really progressing, and actually, you know what? I take that back. We are kind of progressing because everything is getting progressively worse, which obviously is not ideal. But there's definitely no upward trajectory in this book right now. There's some people on a mission, but whether they succeed or not remains to be seen. But then one of the characters actually called me out because the perspectives in here of, I'm going to hazard a guess that the pronunciation is Nias. Nias is the queen's advisor. Then we have Hammer, who is one of the faithless, and we have the child who's Viridian. Now, Nias and Hammer are written in third person, but Viridian's perspective is written in first person, and she also breaks the fourth wall occasionally and addresses the reader. So it gives the impression that this is a story being told by Viridian at some point in the future, looking back on this time. And I was like getting ready to tell you guys that I'm not enjoying this as much as I was at the beginning, and Viridian literally called me out, essentially saying like, oh, is this too slow for you? Are you bored? Is this tyranny and oppression not entertaining enough for you? It literally says like, all this could have been shorter if Nias acted sooner. If Viridian was smarter, you understand you say in the warmth of your room, on your chair, in your bed, now move on. No, read it all. Tyranny doesn't happen in the blink of an eye. It is a slow descent, helped by the complicity of those who think they have no power. A little bit later on it says, you are so resilient and yet so strange, you can sit with the worst atrocities and then complain nothing is happening. So I was very much called out by this book. Saying that though, I don't think that the pacing is slow. There is an element of repetitiveness, especially when we are talking like that little excerpt said about Nias, because like I outlined for you guys in the last clip, like Nias thinks that she has this control over this queen, and it is a tenuous hold at best, but realistically Nias is just somebody who has never really had any power, clinging on to the fragment of it that they have. And then on the other side of that, we have the queen, who is somebody who has grown up with power. She has power, she has privilege, but she's also incredibly childlike, and she lives in fear. So we have her paranoia and her fear growing throughout this, and every experience that she has, negative or positive, is actually pushing her into a position of being more fearful. So she is not coming out of the other side of this stronger. This is not a learning experience for her where she's growing. She's actually regressing. And because Nias wants to hold on to this fragment of something that she has as somebody who has literally been stripped of her identity in the past and was nothing and no one, is acquiescing to the queen's Viridian's every whim. And this is obviously creating this toxic environment where nobody's checking this woman's power, but Nyas couldn't check her power even if she wanted to, because realistically in this world, in the mind of this queen, like, she is nobody, she is nothing. And we have like a cyclical nature there where nothing is really getting better. And then we also have the fact that this book is just pretty miserable. It's not a fun time. We have love in here, we have some semblance of hope, but there was a turning point in this story where everything just started to get progressively worse, and it has not looked up since. So while there is a lot of love, while there is a lot of hope, while we do have Hammer on a mission to maybe do something good, whether she succeeds or not at this point, I have no idea. I would like to say that she does. I would really love to see that. But given the fact that this book is just getting progressively, like I said, more miserable, and the fact that Viridian's tone in her chapters, it's not exactly positive or wistful. And I mean, given the actions that she's describing, I don't think any amount of therapy would take you to a place where you could put a more positive spin on this perspective. But it's not given like I am happy and I've healed from this. It's given I hate my life, I've always hated my life, and this is the reason why. So I think the reason why I'm not enjoying this right now is because it's just not enjoyable. And that's not to say it's bad. It's just really dark and depressing. And so it's not exactly a light, entertaining, uplifting read. So I can't say I'm enjoying it, but I don't think it's bad. I'm not going to say it's good yet because I haven't finished it, but that's not the reason why I'm having such a tough time with it. I just think that tonally, thematically, it's a bit of a drag. You know, guys, I have a few things to tell you, and the first thing is a criminal offence that has been committed against me, and that is that when I woke up this morning, it was 2 degrees. 2. And I did not feel a singular one of those degrees. It's freezing. I refuse to leave the house today, but I have an eyebrow wax appointment at 6 p.m. So I will be leaving the house. I did get my nails done though. I didn't show you. I had my nail appointment yesterday and I got a celestial theme because I'm going to a very cool like Starry Night themed book event next week, which you won't see in this vlog, but I do think that I'm going to follow this one up with my reread and resume part 2 that we've all been waiting for, where I continue the Lycanius trilogy, and I will definitely show you in that vlog. If it doesn't, it's definitely not making it into this one. This vlog is definitely going to be wrapped up before then, and if not, something is terribly wrong. But anyway, the second thing that I have to tell you is that we actually just got a new traveler on the South Korea trip. So I think that leaves us with 7 spaces left. I think I told you guys at the beginning of this vlog that there were 7 spaces. I lied. There's definitely 7 left now after we've just had a new booking because I checked this morning. So if you want to grab those, you better be quick. And Travel Tuesday is coming up, which means that there is potential for you guys to snag a really good deal on your flights. Honestly, I did forget about Travel Tuesday, otherwise I wouldn't have already booked my flights, but I'm like already like good and set to go, which is good because I'm actually having a bathroom renovation right at the beginning of next year. So the less money I spend on anything right now, the better, if I'm being honest. But moving on, because the third and probably most exciting thing I have to tell you guys, is it exciting though? We'll see. I finished Cry Voidbringer by Elaine Ho, and up until the last 15 pages of this, I was convinced that this was going to be a standalone, and I was actually kind of glad about that because this book is just so dark and so depressing, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And you know what? I have a tendency towards the melancholic, you know, like I love me a bit of sadness, a bit of drama, a bit of heartbreak. Some of my favorite movies, in case you didn't know this, Titanic, Moulin Rouge, Seeking a Friend for the End of the World, all very sad story. So I love me a sad story, and I kind of wish that we had brought this to a close and it was just a standalone and it was all just doom and gloom and terrible and awful and dark. However, saying that, if you ask me if I enjoyed this book, I would actually say no, because of how it just gets progressively worse and more miserable and more depressing and horrible. Even though some of the characters, like we started with them all in a pretty broken position, that is nothing compared to where they end this book, it was a ride and not a fun one. I feel like the seasonal depression has been heightened by this book instead of reduced. That being said though, like I said, I do love a good sad story following broken characters and people making terrible choices. And the author did decide to give us a bit of hope at the end of this in the form of what I'm guessing is going to be a sequel. Whether I read that sequel or not, I guess we're gonna have to see, because I did give this like a low 4-star rating. I thought that it was very good, but in terms of types of fantasy story, this is not one that I typically reach for, in that it does remind me a lot of The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. But the thing that frustrated me the most about that series is that there is a sapphic relationship in it between a member of the oppressed people and one of the like colonizers, and I just couldn't, like, they do terrible things to each other because one of them is like working for a rebellion and the other one is like one of the colonizers. So they do terrible things to each other and each other's people and the people that each other cares about, but they keep coming back and talking about how they love each other and care about each other and they want to be together, even though realistically, like, I just didn't see a way that it could ever actually happen. And I thought that based on the time that they spent together, having this level of bond that they like couldn't let go of felt a little bit weird, because it wasn't like in this. There is a power imbalance in one of the romantic relationships that we have in this, and you can tell that it's unhealthy, that it's toxic, that it's not going to end in a happily ever after because of the direction that it's going in. And I feel like that type of relationship was portrayed a lot better in this book than it was in something like The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. This is also compared to The Final Strife by Sarah El Arifi. I would kind of push back on that a little bit. I would say that we have common themes of, once again, like an oppressed people and an oppressive government. In this case, it has imperialist roots and inspiration. But aside from that, I don't think that they have a lot in common. If it wasn't for the fact that it said it on the press release, like I wouldn't ever think of The Final Strife when reading this book. Like, it didn't enter my mind once. I do think as well that in terms of the timeline in here, we have a lot of powerful emotions driving the motivations of our characters. And given that this is 400 pages and it actually spans quite a bit of time, and I couldn't tell you how much exactly, but we actually accomplish quite a lot in here. There is like traveling from place to place on behalf of multiple characters. And I do think that the majority of the traveling scenes we have in here were very barely touched upon. So it was kind of like a character has an aim to go somewhere. We see them in one chapter going there, and in the next chapter they've arrived. And then the issue that I kind of have in terms of my connection to the book is that if I don't see these slower moments when you're talking about these people that you've met that you now really care about and you know love, and how certain circumstances that they end up in is affecting the characters, like if I haven't seen these relationships blossom, if they were somebody who's only appeared like halfway through the book and then 100 pages later you're ready to die for them, I don't feel like those relationships are well established enough for them to have an emotional impact on me. That being said, the emotional journeys that our main characters go on didn't upset me in a way that made me cry. Like, there was no real emotional reaction from me in this, but it is just honestly just such a sad, desperate story, and I do really feel for a lot of the characters, especially the character of Viridian in here. I will give there's tons of content warning, so please do, if you want to go into this book, then do look up a full list, but I will give a big one for child abuse, because Viridian is a child and she's essentially treated terribly by anybody that she ever encounters, and in her own nature she's such like a timid, placid child, and the things that she's kind of forced through really affect her, as they would any child. But because she's not a natural born fighter, her instinct is not to fight back, it's actually to like freeze up. And so I feel like when you're getting into these scenes of abuse and like torture, and you see her treatment throughout some of this, and knowing that she's only somewhere between the ages of like 9 and 13, I think, in this book, it really is quite difficult to read in places. Aside from that, we also of course have the themes of like imperialism. There's a lot of like racism in here, and different races being treated as inferior to others and people being enslaved because of that. And then of course we have the themes of slavery. There's a lot of like torture employed in the control of the armies, which are essentially slave armies in here that have been taken from other cultures as a blood tithe. And all of this, it really like dives into in quite a graphic way. Like, something that this book doesn't do is shy away away from a lot of the topics that it covers. And I definitely respect it for that, but it was like super dreary. It was not an enjoyable reading experience, but I do still think that it was decent. It is more of a character driven story as well, which I do definitely like. I think that it lacked a little bit of fluidity in the plot, because I did feel like we covered quite a span of time in here. And like I said, I can't tell you exactly how long it is, but it felt a little choppy and stilted in the passing of that time, and a little bit of jumping from location to location, which I think took me out of the story a little bit. And in terms of the pace, the middle 200 pages in here, I would say are definitely not quite as gripping as like the first and the last 100. So I gave this one a low 4-star rating. Did enjoy it, but haven't decided yet whether I will carry on with the series. I guess we'll see kind of like when the release is announced, how I'm feeling about it then in hindsight, because while, like I said, this wasn't a particularly enjoyable reading experience, I do actually think it has potential to stick with me for quite some time with some of the more harrowing scenes that I read in this one. Now we are going back to romantasy, I guess, because the last book that I have to pick up for this vlog is Ship of Spells by H. Leighton Dixon. This one I feel like is a deceptive size. I think it looks quite small, but it is over 400 pages. I think maybe only just though, actually. 396. So I lied. It's just under 400 pages. I have no idea what to expect from this one. I'm pretty sure when Penguin Michael Joseph reached out, they did say that it was a romantasy, I think, but it has a sentient ship, which I'm unsure about. It depends how it's executed. And we have an elven mage captaining the ship who has a chimeric magic. That is pretty much all I gleaned from the synopsis without any context. I hope that I enjoy it. Seafaring stories, very much hit or miss for me, but I have enjoyed some in the past. It's actually, I think I might enjoy seafaring stories. I think it's like mermaid stories that I don't like, but we'll see. Maybe this will be the swing vote that decides me for sure, but I've never read anything from this author. I don't know if this is a debut. I have no idea what to expect. Haven't seen anybody talk about it, so I'm going in completely blind. I actually love that though, because I have no expectations. Before we get started, I just wanted to clarify that I am wearing a Christmas sweatshirt because I just filmed a holiday gift guide for my channel. I know it's only November, and honestly, no shade to people who start to get real festive in November. I'm a strictly December 1st kind of girl, because I feel like if I start to get excited in November, by the time we actually get to Christmas, like the excitement's dead. Like I've used it all up. So I'm just a month of December and then 5 days into January festive feeling person. But I needed to dress the part for the video, and it's actually snowing, so the weather is providing the Christmassy vibes right now as well. Would recommend checking out that holiday gift guide if you're looking for some cool bookish gifts to put on your wish list or to give to somebody else this year, because I highlighted a lot of small bookish businesses, the majority of them ones that I purchased from myself and like really recommend. But I am here today with some less pleasant news, I am afraid, because I am 68 pages into Ship of Spells, and I fear I cannot go on. I can't do it. I am not one of those people, no shade to these people, but you know the people who can hate read, you know the people who aren't enjoying something but can read it anyway, even if it's just to like read another 50 pages. I just can't. I started this yesterday and I wasn't enjoying it from the beginning, and I was so resistant to pick it back up. And I picked it back up for bed last night, read a chapter, and I was like, I didn't like that. Then I picked it back up again today and I read a chapter and I was like, I didn't like that. So I think it's over for me with this book. I wanted to get to page 100 to give it like a good solid go. I don't want to. I don't want to read any more from this. And it's not that it's terrible, it's just the style of it, especially like the writing and the magic is just not really for me, because we jump into this story so quickly. We're following this girl who's actually human. The elven captain is not her. Like, I thought she was the elven captain. We do have an elven captain who I think would be the love interest in this book. But the main character is human and she works for the Navy. And they have these enemies that are called the Raya. They come and they sink her ship. And the magic is called Chimera, potentially, and it's like runes, and they just kind of like wave their hands and runes light up and it works. It's not my kind of magic system. As I said, I like things to be very solid, very well explained, very based in logic and have like rules to them, which this, at this point anyway, just really does not seem to be. But she ends up kind of weirdly absorbing this chimera. She's already a mage, but the way that it starts to manifest after this, and honestly, I'm explaining it badly because I don't understand what's happened, but she gets very badly injured when the ship is sunk, and then she ends up with this magical ability that she didn't have, and she's picked up by the ship of spells, and the captain, who I think, like I said, as love interest, doesn't want her there, but she ends up staying regardless, and that's all I can gather from the first 70 pages. My main issue with the writing style is not only does it kind of drop you in the middle, and like before we know who our main character is, her hands have been shredded to ribbons and she's dying floating in the sea. Aside from that, it's one of those books that introduces like 7 characters within a page, and then we start going into like scenes where all of these 7 characters in a room and it's just dialogue, and it's like, I don't know who any of these people are, because you introduce them with a 1-line description, and then we've moved into this group scene where everyone's talking at once and I don't remember who's who. I'm also finding it quite repetitive within the writing, because she keeps saying that this elven captain is like something like Moonslight Gilded or something like that every time she sees him, but also it's like she's attracted to him but doesn't want to be, so she's kind of like insulting him but using like attractive words, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it's for me. I just am really resistant. Like I said, I wish I was one of those people who could say, I'm going to get to page 100 and then spend a normal amount of time reaching page 100. I would drag my feet the entire way, because that was my original intention, and just the thought of it is really putting me off. So I don't think this is a book that I'm going to enjoy, unfortunately. I will say as well, I think part of the reason why I am finding this so hard to form any attachment to is that in terms of the seafaring, it is just like throwing all of this like seafaring jargon at you as the ship is being attacked. Like in chapter 1, it's like, I don't know what these words mean. I can't get my bearings. What is going on? Yeah, it was not a good time. I did not like it. So I'm going to be DNFing our final book for this video, which was Ship of Spells. But, you know, as Meatloaf said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, because I did really enjoy Blackthornne and also Cry Voidbringer for very different reasons, though. This one was a roller coaster ride. It was a car crash that you couldn't look away from, wildly entertaining, deeply riveting. This one was so dark. It was so dark, it was almost a drag, because it's like, okay, I'm signing up for another 50 pages of just reading miserable things. But while it wasn't exactly all fun times and sunshines and rainbows, I did actually think it was really interesting, and I liked it in that regard. And unfortunately, Ship of Spells, she just ain't for me. So that does conclude this vlog. Since I started filming this vlog, actually, I've been sent a box of books from Bloomsbury, because I am an ambassador for their new fantasy imprint, Bloomsbury Archer. So thank you very much to Bloomsbury for selecting me for this position. I'm very, very excited about it. But they sent me like an introductory box of books that went along with that, which included 2 November releases. I'll just pull them out and show you while we're here. So I believe that their November 6th release was As Many Souls as Stars by Natasha Siegel. This one I'm actually really interested in, because it's about 2 women. Reincarnation plays a big part in this story, but it also starts off in the 1500s, which, while I'm not a massive fan of historical fiction, I do actually really like the 14 and the 1500s for some reason. I think it's because it's the time in the world when Christianity was starting to take hold. So when we're talking about fantasy, we tend to have these stories where it's like folklore versus religion, and I really like that dynamic. But this features reincarnation and these 2 women trying to find each other in every lifetime, because I think of something that one of them like promised the other. So that sounds really good. And then a November 11th release is Dawn of the Firebird by Sarah Migal Rana. This one is a high fantasy that has one of my favorite plot structures, and that is a main character who attends an academy. She infiltrates an academy, joins as a student where she starts to learn about the jinn and martial arts with the intention of breaking it apart from the inside to gain her revenge for something that happened to her in the past. That is the plot of Red Rising. Also has, I feel like the parcel force guy has just delivered my parcel to my safe place and put a letter through my door again, instead of just knocking on the door. Just knock on the door. Why do you hate people so much? It's only parcel force that do this. But anyway, it's a thing that we see in The Will of the Many, which The Strength of the Few dispatched today. Very excited about that. And also Red Rising, which are 2 of my favorite books. Also Nevernight slightly, but not quite. So I'm very excited about those 2, but the original books that we intended to read for this video are complete, or somewhat complete, because we did not complete Ship of Spells. So I am going to be wrapping up here, but the next vlog you're going to see from me, I think I'm going to carry on with my reread and resume project, which essentially means that I'm going to be reading the Not the Strength of the Few, An Echo of Things to Come by James Islington, which I was supposed to read at the end of September, but life happened and the book didn't. So we're going to be moving on to that, and then I'll get back to Shelve It or Scrap It. So do stay tuned for that if you are at all interested. Once again, a big thank you, of course, to Rosetta Stone for sponsoring this one. And if you would like to give the gift of language this holiday season, then please don't forget that you can click on the link at the top of my description box and take advantage of their $99 single language holiday promotion, or get yourself over 60% off an unlimited lifetime subscription. But aside from that, guys, I do hope you've enjoyed this vlog if you've made it this far. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're go and nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.